On the surface, this looks like a story about your typical residents association. They're managing money, setting some rules, just trying to keep everything running. But when you look a little closer, you find a massive problem hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, that's the real question here, isn't it? What happens then? We're going to unpack how a community's leadership could find themselves in this exact messy situation. And we'll do it by looking at two key documents, the minutes from a seemingly normal committee meeting and a legal review that changes absolutely everything.
All right, so let's set the scene. It's February 21st, 2026. The committee of the Vasant Vihar Army Residents Welfare Association, let's just call it VVARWA, is holding its monthly meeting. And really, to anyone looking in, it was just business as usual.
And the agenda? Yep, it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect. They're dealing with all the usual stuff that comes with running a big community. Things like infrastructure repairs, getting ready for the summer. Everything seems totally, completely normal.
And to give you an idea, they put forward some pretty smart rules to conserve water. Banning hose pipes for washing cars, setting times for watering gardens. This is exactly the kind of proactive, responsible stuff you'd want your leadership to be doing.
But just under that calm surface of normal governance, the first real sign of trouble was starting to show. And it was a big one, a major cash flow problem.
And this slide, this is where you really start to see the cracks forming. Their own budget was projecting they'd end the financial year more than 5 lakh rupees in the red. The money just wasn't coming in the way they expected it to.
So, facing this kind of shortfall, the committee made a pretty drastic move. They decided to break a fixed deposit for this exact amount. We're talking nearly 16 lakh rupees, just to get some liquid cash into their account.
And look, breaking a fixed deposit isn't something you do on a whim. It is a massive red flag that you're in some kind of financial trouble. It really makes you wonder, why were they so desperate for cash?
Well, just 5 days after that meeting, a legal review landed that completely flipped the script. What looked like a simple money problem was about to explode into a full-blown crisis of authority.
Okay, before we get to the bombshell, we have got to understand this one key concept, fiduciary duty. All it means is that the committee has an legal and an ethical duty to always act in the best interests of the residents they represent. That is job number one. Don't forget that. And here it is, the opening shot from that legal review. A critical governance paradox. The report is basically saying, hey, even though this committee is acting like they're in charge, their power to do so might be, and I'm quoting here, legally impaired. So what was the big bombshell? Here it is. The legal review alleges there is a final, official, regulatory order out there that flat out prohibits the association from collecting any maintenance fees. At all. And the details here are what make this so critical. According to the review, this wasn't some minor issue or a pending case. The order was final. No one ever appealed it. And the most important part? This bombshell information was allegedly never, ever shared with the homeowners. Okay, so let's rewind. Let's look back at all those normal decisions from that committee meeting, but this time, let's look at them through this new lens, the lens of their alleged lack of authority. This is where it all starts to look like a breach of trust.
This table just lays it all out, side by side. On the left, you see them approving over 2 lakh rupees in spending. But on the right, the alleged reality. They were spending money from a source they were legally forbidden from even collecting. They were pushing residents to pay up, when those payments might not have been legally enforceable in the first place.
So remember that fiduciary duty we just talked about? Well, the legal review argues it was breached on so many levels. A breach of legality by acting without authority. A breach of candour or, honesty by not disclosing the order. And a breach of prudence by putting everyone's money at risk.
And you see, this wasn't just about one mistake, one hidden order. The legal review suggests this was part of a much larger pattern of behavior with very real consequences for every single resident in the community. Yeah, the review points to this recurring pattern in the committee's own records. You've got major decisions just stamped approved, with no explanation, no record of who voted, no risk assessments. This kind of lack of transparency and due diligence, it points to a systemic problem. And this isn't just about boring paperwork, right? This has real-world, potentially dangerous consequences. For instance, there's a critical electrical part that's broken. It poses a safety risk, and the official decision was just, quote, continued efforts to be made. No timeline, no backup plan, nothing to address a serious hazard. So here's the bottom line, the so what, for every homeowner. The risk is now shared by everyone.
People could start demanding refunds for all the fees they've already paid. There could be expensive lawsuits. Heck, the registrar could step in and suspend the entire committee, leaving a massive leadership vacuum.
Which brings us right back to where we started. When the group in charge is making decisions, spending money, and enforcing rules, all without, allegedly, the legal authority to do so, it forces us to ask a really tough question. Who is actually responsible here? And where does the real liability for this whole governance paradox ultimately lie?